Greetings, and welcome to this episode in the series of videos on Lidar with ArcGIS Pro. This series is brought to you by AmericaView in partnership with the College of Natural Resources and Environment at Virginia Tech, the Virginia Cooperative Extension, and GeoTed UAS. I'm Cherie Auckland, and I'll be your guide. In this chapter, we'll cover the tools for classifying individual points or groups of points interactively. We begin with a new map scene and the San Luis Valley LAST dataset. You may want to begin by copying the entire raw data folder to a new folder for this project because the classifications we make will change the original data, and there is no undo once you've committed a classification. Let's review the classifications for this dataset. Here we see there are 5 classifications: unassigned, ground, low noise, water, and rail. Low noise typically are those points that appear to be below ground level. Now let's view how many points are assigned to each of these classifications by going to Catalog View and opening the Properties and Statistics. Of the approximately 20 million points in the point cloud, 6 million of them, or almost 32%, are not classified. Let's go back to the San Luis Valley elevation. In this point cloud, there are buildings, vegetation, roads. I've got a bookmark here to give you an example. Electrical wires, so these could be electrical wires. These are probably buildings. These could be trees, and other features present, but these are unassigned to any classification code. So let's change the symbology to show classification codes. So we would draw using classification, and change the colors so that each class is easily distinguishable from the other. Now let's zoom into this area of buildings right here. We're going to come back here often, so you can create a bookmark if you like, which I did. Now let's zoom in a little bit closer to these buildings. Tilting around a little bit, we can see what appear to be maybe some trees and buildings and smaller trees around this area. Let's create a profile view to assist us in classifying these points. Select your last dataset layer. Go to the Last Dataset Layer tab, Classification, and over here in Profile Viewing, make sure your depth is 20 feet. And let's also check to make sure autocomplete is on. Now we'll create the profile by clicking the Create button. And we'll try to create a profile here of just these roof points. Zooming back out just a little bit, you can see that we were pretty good at collecting just those roof points. So in this profile view, the only points from the point cloud that we see here are those within the box that we created. And since we know these are only roof points on a building, we can classify them all at once as a group. So from the selection group up here, select your favorite tool from the drop-down list. Now here I think rectangle makes the most sense. And just draw a rectangle to select this grouping of points that you see here. If there are any others nearby, take care to capture only roof and building points. You can change tools if you need to make a more refined selection. So now in the interactive edit group, choose the classification code drop-down, and we're going to choose 6 building. Now you may be thinking right now that 6 building was not one of the classification codes in this dataset, and you're right. It isn't used in this dataset, but it is an available code that we can use for classification. Go ahead and apply these changes. Well, it seems like our points have disappeared, but that's because we don't have buildings in our classification scheme yet. Let's fix that. Let's exit the profile viewing window. Here too, the points now classified as 6 building appear to be missing. Go to Symbology and choose Add All Values from this More drop-down menu. So now over here in Contents, as well as in the Symbology window, you can see that all classification codes available within the San Luis Valley dataset are now showing, even though not all classification codes are used in this point cloud. We can turn these unused codes off later. And we see now that the building points are showing. But Add All Values was only for display. Let's go back and check the properties. Last filter to be sure the 6 building class code has been added to the dataset. Here's where you can also turn off all those additional unused classification codes, and we'll worry about that later. And one more thing. As the interactive classification process is completed, statistics must be updated. And you have to do that in the catalog view of the last data set. We'll make a few more changes before updating. So back here in the scene, let's change the color symbology for 6 building so those points are more distinctive. I'll choose orange. So using select within profile view was one way to interactively classify points. Now let's zoom in closer to the same building. The select tool can also be used outside of profile view. So let's choose, say, the lasso selection tool this time and select more of these building roof points. If you get too many, you can just clear using the clear button and start again. Make sure classification code is 6 building and go ahead and apply your changes. Now before moving on, let's go ahead and update statistics. So go on over to Catalog View, go to your last dataset properties and statistics. Here you can see that one file has outdated or no statistics, so go ahead and update. And now let's go back to the scene. So continue on your own classifying the building points. Practice with different selection methods, polygon, lasso, circle, and line. You can use reference images to assist in classification if needed. For example, there are unassigned points shown at the left of the roof building. So for example, if I tilt this scene, you can see some points over here on the left side of the building that I still can't really determine what they are. Just tilting around. I mean, are those buildings or bushes next to a building? It's really hard to tell. So you can check the profile view too, but I'm not sure if that'll help. If you're still unsure, just use Google Earth. And in this screenshot, Google Earth makes it clear that those additional unassigned points are a smaller building. So continue with this classification process until all the buildings in this extent are classified as 6 building. And remember, when you apply changes, the changes are saved permanently. Don't forget to update your statistics when you're finished. And when you're finished, your point count should be close to mine. If the point count under 6 building is a few off from mine, don't worry, we'll address that in Chapter 21. Now for additional practice, classify a few of the trees in this extent. And trees are best completed in profile viewing, so no understory vegetation such as perennial flowers and bushes are captured. This is a long, monotonous way of classifying points and is best used for finishing touches, such as classifying a small number of incorrectly assigned points, for classifying points in a very small area, or classifying in a large area where all points are the same. We'll cover more classification methods in the next 2 chapters.